There is a danger, though, however, when we start saying us and them and not saying, and we love everybody the same, and not, it starts to become they're different, there's something wrong with them.
Yeah, that's why I said we are called to treat each other as we,
Yeah.
that there is no difference between us and them, that we are all human beings. We're all created in the image of God.
And that's what, when there's politics discussions where it starts to feel dividing, one of the things I say is my job is just to love everyone. That is it. It's not about who you vote for or who you don't. It's just to love everyone.
And that's not easy.
Welcome, everybody. It's time once again for the next chapter with Charlie Hedges, as he explores turning the page on his life and yours.
Hi, everybody, and welcome to the next chapter with Charlie. My very special, and you're going to find out she's extra special today. My special guest is Diane McDowell, and I was caught. I have to admit, I was caught. I got out of the shower, and I got a text saying, "I'm waiting for you on Riverside, your producing app." And I thought, oh my goodness, I'm not at all prepared for this podcast. I have never ever, we just, as the audience knows, we just celebrated 400 episodes. So I've done this a few times, and I have never been in this state where I had no notes, no introduction. I've talked to a couple of guests today, so I'm confused who I'm talking to. And Diane is going to clue us in because she is an expert at a book she has not yet written, yet we're all trying to tell her to write, but there's issues around that. But it's a wonderful title. And the title is, Has Your Brain Been Hijacked? Oh my goodness, how many times has my brain been hijacked? So with that question, let's bring on Diane McDowell and have Diane McDowell tell us all about how your brain gets hijacked. Diane, welcome to this fun chapter with the next chapter with Charlie.
Thank you, Charlie. It is so great to be here, and we're just going to take this conversation wherever it goes. So, I am a therapist by training. I do relationships, and the brain hijack is really about what happened for me was in my marriage. I've been married 24 years now. One of the things that what happened was I felt like a hypocrite. I would be doing therapy with other people, teaching them how to do the communication skills and reflect and do all these skills. And I was like, I feel like a hypocrite because I'm teaching them how to do it, but I am not able to do it when something happens to me. And I couldn't put words to it then. But what I've since learned is it's when the brain gets hijacked. When our brain goes into fight, flight, or freeze and sees our partner as dangerous, we can't access the skills we've been taught. So many of us have been taught skills, but we aren't able to use them. And so that's where this whole brain hijack idea came from, was when our brain is hijacked, we can't access the skills we know we want to be able to use. I'm
wondering, did the brain hijack us, or is this the reptilian brain coming into play here? So it's part of our natural proclivity anyway. We have to consciously work our way out of the fight, flight, or freeze. That's a conscious effort, is it not?
Yes. And so it's like a reflex to keep us safe. It is our reptilian brains designed to keep us safe and be scanning for danger. And so what happens is our brain is scanning for danger and it says, your partner's dangerous. So it's misreading the tension as an actual danger. And then it starts to want to attack our partner like they are actually physically endangering us. So we have to be able to get in tune with grounding ourselves, centering on our nervous system so we can see what's real, because our brain stops hearing what's actually being said and we hear everything as a threat when we're in that space.
That is a brilliant observation. And I'm thinking just in my relationship with Pam, and how frequently I can personalize her comments that are not meant to be personal. And I view that as some kind of attack. And so I want to respond with what I feel is a response action to an attack. And I in the end, at the end of the day, I'm a good runner. I can walk away and just, and it's terrible, but I've never thought that that's a reptilian brain that is doing that. I just thought it was my ego that couldn't take it. Well, in a sense, it is, because my ego is so closely tied to the reptilian brain.
Yeah.
But
when we can understand that, we can change it better, because we can realize what will often happens is we get into cycles. And so it's like, when this happens, what would happen with clients and myself was we start to beat ourselves up. We're like, why can't I use these skills? What's wrong with me? And we start to beat ourselves up instead of being like, oh, this is the reptile brain that's scared, that feels like I'm in danger, and it's just doing its job. So I actually teach like befriending that part of us and being like, oh, you're just scared. I just need to comfort you. You're like a scared child, and I just need to comfort you so that you feel safe, so you don't have a need to attack anymore.
Brilliant observation. How do you do that? I love that. Now talk to me about process.
So the way you do it, I teach kind of a 3 pillars. So first is in the brain hijack. So it's starting to notice, what are the thoughts I'm having? The thought might be, they're trying to hurt me. The thought might be, they're judging my character. They're judging me. So notice, just becoming the wise watcher is what I call it, starting to watch the thought. The second step is creating safety. So I call it safety that holds. So you want to feel safe inside yourself. So what happens is, I don't feel safe. But what happens is we outsource our safety. We want other people to make us feel safe. If they would just behave different, I could feel safe. We have to create our own safety. It is our responsibility to create our own safety. So first is end the brain hijack, become the wise watcher. The second step is a safety that holds. Start to learn how to create your own safety. And then the third step, I call it return to you. Because the idea is, you're going to return back to yourself and stop playing small, stop minimizing your requests. You're going to be honest about who you are and live with integrity. So those are the 3 skills that I teach to create that action, what I call the brain to heart code. You learn to get out of your brain and back into your body.
Now, as I'm thinking about this, because these are brilliant, I love every one of them. I think the process flows well, and the process is really good, but it calls for one of 2 things. It calls for, in the middle of an argument, for saying, time out. Let me think about this for a second, which is going to cause problem, or it is most likely you're going to deal with it. Because it's so auto-responsive. It is something that we do post-mortem, is it not? Something we do in hindsight. We take a look at it and say, how might I have handled that better? What would be different? What could be my attitude? And I'll just use my wife as an example, because that's what husbands and wives do, among many, many things, but getting in arguments is quite common. Is that I do a postmortem, and I set up sort of a strategy for the future. I sort of create my own safety, a future safety net. Does that make sense?
It does. And I would say yes and no. I would agree with you. Yes, you can do it post-mortem, like after the fact. I encourage people to try to do it in the moment if they can. Notice what's happening. The second it's like a split second, our brain goes into protective mode. And what we want to do is start to notice and be like, oh, I'm noticing it. I'm noticing that I'm tensing up. My face, my jaw is tensing. My shoulders are tensing. You want to catch it. I'm not saying you're going to prevent hijacks, but you can start to learn to recognize the symptoms and be like, okay, take a breath. How do my feet feel on the floor? So it's creating it. A lot of times when we change a habit, it's after the fact that we start, and then we move backward. So I use the example, if I'm a snacker and I go in the kitchen, I grab some food and I put it in my mouth, and then I'm like, oh, I'm not snacking, but I've already eaten it. Next time I catch it and I start to put it in my mouth, I'm like, nope, throw it in the trash. I'm not eating it. Every time we get closer and closer to our goal. So yes, it may be that you start noticing it after the fact, But ideally, as soon as you start to feel a physical sensation change, and so I teach people how to start noticing their body. Like, pay attention. Does it make you feel heavy or light, open or closed? And so you start to get familiar with, what does my body feel like? So you can catch when your body starts to change, because you've already created a relationship with your body.
Yeah, I like that. What is, I don't notice, personally, I don't notice my psychological issues to expose themselves physically. I don't feel like I have physical, you're talking about, physical, what is your body telling you? My body doesn't tell me anything to me unless I don't know how to listen to it, but my soul, my spirit, all those are shouting at me. I'm getting internal messages, but I don't feel it in my body like, what do you feel in your gut? I don't feel anything in my gut. So what do you mean by that? What kind of physical?
Yeah. And that is a great question, because so many people will say that. My body doesn't, I don't feel it, but it's there. We have not learned how to tune into it. So many people, if you think about, our mind speaks in sentences, our body speaks in sensations. So many of us don't know how to even get into our body to see what the sensations are. We go to our head and we analyze it and we think about it, but we actually need to get into our body. So that's where I'm talking about, what I actually teach people to do is just to start notice. Do I feel heavy or light right now? Do I feel tension anywhere in my body? Does it feel open or closed? Like, our body wants to close whenever we don't feel safe. Like, it literally wants to cross up, like close our body down. So just starting to pay attention. Is there anything that I can notice in my body? Do I notice tension anywhere? Does it feel hot, cold? So people a lot of times will think it's like some big explosion. No, a lot of times it's just noticing any sensation moving. But your body is always communicating with you. It's your ability to tune into it.
That is such different hardwiring for me, Diane. That is so different, because I am very attuned to catching into my emotional responses. I practice the thoughts of hemispheric brain thinking. So I kind of live in the world of left brain and right brain, head and heart. And so I can identify with both of those very well, and I can distinguish between those very well. I am a natural born thinker who has learned to live by his heart. And as I progress in age, I'm becoming much more heart centric, and I think that gets me. The sensations you're talking about, I feel them in my heart, but do I feel hot and cold, heavy or light? That's something I'll have to pay more attention to, because I don't grasp those. But tell me, if I'm catching it. So here's a question. My my therapist. I'm your client now. Um, I am really good at the heart part. I am really good at distinguishing. I'm really good at knowing I feel hurt. I may not. I don't always act as if I know it. I'm not. It comes in a post-mortem, but it is my fear of hurtful, of rejection. My issues are rejection and abandonment. Those are, I had those for nearly the first decade of my life, and then I was adopted by God, and so she was an amazing person in my life, just her grace and love. But prior to that, those are the issues that really come close to me, and I find, when I am aware of those and dealing in those, I am much more open to other people talking to me. I find my communication, my ability to communicate and live within conflict, has increased significantly. And Diane, I go into a conversation now not wanting. I try to frame my questions when I'm talking to somebody, and sometimes I'll even preface it with, "I'm not looking to debate here. I'm not, or if debate is fine. I'm not looking to argue. I'm looking, debate is great. That we can, disagree with me all you want. Please disagree with me. But we don't have to be angry. We don't, so I go in with that. And if I can prevent the anger on my side, at least I'm not projecting that onto the other person. But, but those are the issues that I feel my childhood fears are what have hijacked my brain.
Yeah. And so those are your triggers, but those childhood fears, being aware so that you can be grounding yourself anytime you notice that a topic comes up that's around. Most of us have topics that we're more sensitive to. And so knowing which ones are the ones that I tend to notice. So for like, if somebody's co-parenting with another parent and you know that a discussion about certain child tends to cause tension, then getting really grounded before you have that. I actually teach doing an 18-second, like noticing your feet on the floor, taking a couple deep breaths, noticing how, like picturing, imagining how you want to show up during this conversation. Because when we are really grounded in our body, it's kind of like this. If I'm a confident person in what I believe and think, I don't have to prove to anyone. When we know where we stand, we don't have to prove it. So we can go into the conversation much more from a place of love because we don't have an agenda to prove it to anybody. We're just sharing.
I love that. That is such a wonderful suggestion. It's such a wonderful difference in thinking. Now, I say I'm not aware of the body. However, this comes from a person who for at least a decade has meditated daily. And so that's all about the body.
Yeah.
That's all about calming the body and calming the body and calming the mind. But that is the one thing I'm really good at, is that I meditate for 20 minutes and I don't move. There is no movement. There is nothing. It's total relaxation, total flowing into the moment. Let my body be in the space of where I'm sitting, and then take my consciousness to try to do the same thing with my mind, is to calm my mind and clear my mind. I don't, after having done this and studied it a bit, I don't believe that for most of us, unless you're a Buddhist monk, a long practicing Buddhist monk, I don't think we can get into that state of not thinking at all, because we live in the world of monkey mind, and so we're always thinking. And I like what Andy Puddicombe talks about on his podcast, is clear skies. We're looking for clear skies, and so the clouds are those thoughts that we have that are interrupting our time of mindfulness, and we're just looking for blue skies, letting those clouds pass away. You can't get up and pull the clouds down, but let them pass away. Let them move on. Just be patient. That's a big word. Let's talk about that for a second. I just kind of float onto that word. That's become a huge word in my life, probably in the last year, that I don't think patience has been so important to me as it is now.
Tell me what patience means to you.
Spoken like a therapist. It's a great question. No, it's a really good question. Patience means setting up a framework of non-judgmentalism, and that I can accept. I think with my wife, obviously we have triggers for each other, and that we say certain things, and those triggers will set off who knows what, a whole number of reactions or responses. I try to eliminate those triggers. I try to get up and just say, let me just listen to what she says and just accept that and take that and then respond without protective, without being emotionally protective, just responding. And so that I'm patient. I let things go. I don't try to control and articulate what needs to happen next. And his sort of patience is letting things be as they are.
So I feel like actually what you're describing in my mind is a lot of different things: curiosity,
Yes,
non-judgment,
yes.
uh, kind of allowing it to be what it is without trying to force. A lot of times we try to control or manipulate people into saying or doing. So I feel like it's not just patience. I think patience is one of it, but it feels like it's a kind of a conglomeration of, I don't know. I wonder if there's a word to describe it all, maybe.
Yeah, that's
Because it feels to me when you're talking about it, it feels so much more like I'm learning to lean in and allow.
Diane, I know you say you have issues about writing itself. You know, there's some physical issues you have about
Dyslexia,
writing itself.
yes.
Okay, you have dyslexia. What if you just recorded this and then recorded on Otter or something and gave it to an AI to turn into words for you? Because you have statements. You know how many statements you have said that, I mean, you've made so many statements that should be written down somewhere. And they're on this show, but you know, they're brilliant statements. You know, you really catch the depth of, because I agree completely with what you're saying. I had an interesting event yesterday. Um, um, I am one of those men who gets manicures twice a month and a pedicure monthly, and I get a facial and my eyebrows done every month. So I, you know, I
Good for you.
and and it's just mostly because I like it. You know, I mean, it's just, you know, I like being pampered, and so I've been going for about a decade. I've been going to the same person to do my eyebrows and my facial, and it's about an hour and a half by the time she does my eyebrows and does does my face and you know whatever all she does. Um, and I said, and and I told her, Jamie, I've got a couple questions. Let's go down a path and let's not get. I have a couple of difficult questions, and you know that I am putting out, and I put those forward, and I ended up with about 3 boxes that just took us into rabbit holes. Now I didn't get argumentative, but they were just very sensitive subjects. And she said, Charlie, can we just pick door number 4 next time and find one that's not quite so hard as this? The 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 facial lasted an hour and 45 minutes instead of an hour and 20 minutes because we were chatting so much. But it is very difficult for anyone to talk freely without getting very emotionally involved in political subjects.
So here's, I'm going to twist it, but it comes back. So right before we went on live, you said, do you trust me? And I said, yes. And it connects back because here's what I teach people. And this is what I truly believe. When you trust yourself, you don't have to trust other people because when you really trust yourself, you know that you can handle anything that comes up and you're going to walk away proud of how you handle yourself. And so when you're talking about having politics conversations or difficult conversations with people, to me, it's about trusting yourself that you can have any conversation and be proud of how you show up, that you don't start getting egocentric and having to prove a point or anything. So to me, when you're talking about this, I feel like it's a lot of not trusting ourselves when we feel like we have to prove ourselves or make a point. Instead of just being like, I trust and know that what's right for me is right for me, and you get to make the same decision for you.
But is there not yet another aspect to that? And the aspect is dealing with the other person's response when they're having a hard time with it. When it is a subject they are triggered, they know I'm not throwing out judgment on them. But it is such a difficult conversation, and I can't even remember the topics. I wish I could tell you the topics. If I could remember the topics, Diane, I would tell you the topics. And I said, this is what I'm thinking about. What do you think? And and then after the hour and 45 minutes, she said, "Whoa," and I said, "Welcome to my brain. This is where I live."
Okay, let's go back to what you said, because you said, what do we do when someone else is triggered, when someone else is triggered?
Yes.
Okay, and to me, the answer is when I feel good about me, I can hold space for you. I don't need to try to fix it or make it better or do anything. I think this is one of the hardest skills for people to learn, is allowing someone else to be in their own pain or their own journey of struggle and not fix it, just hold space for it.
Oh, yeah.
They will figure it out. It's not our job to be like, hey, I think you should do this or this. So when somebody's triggered and having a hard time, if we can just sit there and love, they will find their way.
And in a sense, isn't that even your job as a therapist? It's not to fix, but to guide people to fix themselves.
Yeah. And what I actually teach is you don't need fixed. You just need to find where your next direction is or what you want to do. But the idea that we have to fix ourselves assumes we're broken. And what I want to suggest is we're not broken. We're disoriented. We're confused. We're trying to make decisions. Like when we look at ourselves as broken, which I know in the religious area, we do actually, a lot of people say that, we are broken humans. But
well, it's a lot easier than the word sin. It's a lot. That's always my term, because my option is the word sin, and I don't want to go to sin. I don't want to talk about that. But our brokenness, but
seeing ourselves as broken can be really dangerous, because we start to see ourselves as a problem. So I actually tell people, I don't fix people. I help you find what's interfering with the life you want and make those changes.
Do you say that on that quote that you just had right now? Listen back to the podcast, copy that quote, make sure that's in everything you do to advertise what you do. I don't fix people. I
help find what is interfering with the life they want and change that.
That is so cool. That is so cool. That really is what is interfering with you living the life that you want. Now, you know what that assumes is that you have a clue of the life you want.
Yes and no. So here's the thing: this is what
I teach people.
Oh
my goodness.
Well, and here's what I teach people. When they come in, they may not have an idea. So that is my job, is to start asking you questions to figure out what you want. So what I tell people is what we're going to look at. So a lot of times in therapy, people look at the past. I generally do not. What I tell people is we're going to start where you are. We're going to help you figure out where you want to go. It's like when you go on vacation, you don't just drive around in circles. You put a GPS coordinator in. So we're going to figure out where you think you want to go. And then we're going to start figuring out how to start getting there. We're not going to go in a straight line. You're going to go zigzag all over the place. And maybe there's going to change. But we get an idea, a picture, so you can start imagining and picturing what that looks like. And then we will start figuring out how to eat, what's interfering with getting there, what roadblocks we need to move to.
Yeah, and if your past is one of those roadblocks, and your past is one of your roadblocks, but you don't begin with your past.
Yes.
You begin with who you are and where you want to go.
Yes. And what I tell people is we will address your past as it comes up as interfering with the life you want to have now.
Yeah, that was what I tried to say. Exactly. Yeah, I concur. I like that a lot. I'm at a place where I've always been reasonably comfortable with myself, just not always, but, post post 30 or 40 years old. I've gotten comfortable with myself. But I'm telling you, since I turned 70, there is like a lightning bolt of wisdom that hit me at 70 years old that has helped me to settle down, take things in, be much more observant, much more cognizant of exactly what you're saying. Where am I? Where do I want to go? I know who I am, but I'm always writing about how to move forward, and I like that a lot, and I think there's something about life review that helps that too.
Yes.
It's just taking a look at my life in general.
For a lot of people, what you're talking about happens like at 50, where they start kind of reflecting, like I'm at least halfway over through my life, if not more. And what do I want the next section of my life to look like? So, yes, I think a lot of reflecting and kind of thinking about who you want to be, what legacy you want to leave can really help put you in the right trajectory of where you want to be headed.
Talk to me about, you just mentioned a magic word in my vocabulary, and that is legacy. Talk to me about legacy.
So it's kind of one of those things to me, like when people talk about success, people throw around success and everybody has a different idea of what success looks like. And I think legacy is kind of one of those words where it's like, leave a legacy. But what do you want your legacy to be? What do you want to be known for? For me, when I think about what legacy I want to be known for, it's that I want to shine love everywhere I go. I want to make sure that judgment or self-fulfilling needs don't interfere with my ability to just shine love everywhere I go. So legacy is really like, what is it that we want to be known for, even if others don't necessarily know us for that? I think a lot of times we think others will know us for that. But what is it that I want to project out into the world and be known for?
You know, I have a little bit different take on that.
Okay.
Very similar, but it's a slight but significant change. I want my legacy to be something that impacts the world, but I could care less if I'm known for it. Just so I know my legacy continues on. My legacy, my word, my one word for legacy is kindness. And that if I can be kind now, and then I'm kind to other people, it is like smiling at someone. They smile back. When you're nice to someone, they're nice back. And then they project that niceness because it's so contagious. It is kindness is contagious in my mind.
Yeah.
And then they project that, and then those people will project it to someone else, and those people will project it to someone else. No one, and I really don't care. No one will say, I learned this from Charlie Hedges. No one will say that. It's just that I did a kind act, that they remember a kind act and they remember their own kindness, and it goes on. So that is my legacy, is that I want to leave an impact of kindness on the world. Is I want to see, and I make a distinction between the world and my world. My world is the world that I have influence on, and the people that I influence others. That is still a really small world in light of 4 billion or 7 billion or whatever people we have on the
What do you
planet.
see the difference between nice and kind?
You know, I know there are people that make a huge difference between that. You know, that say, you know, and I don't recall, but I've heard several shows and read that people talk about nice and kind. For me, they're very similar. I'm not sure there's this huge difference between niceness and kindness. As a matter of fact, when Jesus talks about loving one another as you love yourself, I just talked, you know, and the two commandments. You know, people will talk about the two commandments of God. are to love God and to love your neighbor. I have changed it because I just want English. I want people to get it. So I want people to get terms that they can identify with, that they can respond to, that they can act according to. So I say, love God and be nice, and you're in. This is you got nothing else, nothing else. So I don't see a big distinction. Do you see a big distinction between nice and kindness?
I do, but I think, and so what I tell my clients is you have to decide for yourself, obviously. This is just my thoughts. I feel like nice feels weak. I feel like, and this is my own training when I used to work back in hospitals as a mental health professional, we were told to be nice to the doctors, to be nice. And to me, that felt very much like let everybody walk all over you. Don't set boundaries. I have that from
Oh,
childhood too, where it's like girls are supposed to
oh,
smile and be nice and give people hugs and make them feel good. And so niceness to me feels like a doormat, whereas kindness has boundaries. Kindness is caring. So for me, and I tell clients, I want you to differentiate for yourself because a lot of times I think that clients are nice and people will say, I'm just too nice. And I go, I call BS on that because that just really means you have no boundaries. You have poor boundaries, but you're calling it nice, but it's a lack of boundaries when you overdo and over take care of and over fix for everybody.
yeah, I get it. I have few drivers for me to be nice, to roll over and you know, niceness, kindness to me, kindness. The reason I use kindness instead of love because and I write a lot about love. Love is huge in my vocabulary. But kindness is love in action. And it is something you can it's a definable term because love is such a multifarious word. It has the field of meaning of love is so broad that we're the only language in the world that has one word for love, and every other language has three, four, five, six, seven, or more words for love. And so that's why I just take kindness and say kindness is love in action. For me, when I am nice, that is for me, that is that is that is an act of love. That is an act of, I want to keep things on the upper hand. Although I'm not afraid to raise controversy. I'm not afraid to, as my poor um, um, facial person experienced, I'm not afraid to ask the tough ones.
Yeah. Yeah. So if you see them the same, then do you like you interchange them? They're not like you use kindness and um nice interchangeably,
Yeah,
pretty
yeah.
much.
I could use them. I could use the words. I could use the words synonymously. Although I do understand what you're talking about, this niceness, just always smiling and, sort of it's there is something not true to it, something not real to it. The way you're describing it, it is it truly is a projection with the hope of getting something out of it. Kindness is not with the hope of getting anything out of it. Kindness is, I'm not looking for a response. I don't need a response.
What do you think about like your relationship with yourself? When you think about your relationship with yourself, like how do you describe that or what do you think about that concept?
Oh, oh my goodness. Um, um, Now that, like I said, post 70, I agree that there's significant growth going on in the 50s. All I can tell you is wait till you're 70 and go, oh my God, now I know what Charlie's talking about. It is just, there's something about old age that is incomparable. It's just, old age is the coolest time of life. It is just, it is so great. So now tell me, give me some specifics on your question. What is it that I think about myself? Because I,
Your
I do
relationship.
think about myself a lot.
So what I teach people is our relationship with ourselves is our most important earthly relationship. But a lot of times when I
Okay.
ask people, what's your relationship with yourself like? They'll be like, I don't know what you're talking about. I don't know what you mean. Like, what do you mean a relationship with yourself? So I feel like you have done a lot of soul searching and stuff. So
Oh
when
yeah.
you like, do you identify like my relationship with myself or you just have it and don't really think about it that way or?
I I find that, it's the reason I said I wanted a little bit of clarity, because it's such an expansive question. I mean, there's so many things when you want me to talk about what do I see in myself. There are so many things I see in myself, but I do see goals of patience and kindness. I do see in me there is a proclivity for judgment that I wrestle with all the time, and I've become very good at winning that wrestling match, and that I try to be non-judgmental. Um, I find non-judgmentalism, love and kindness are huge in my life. Um, Two words that I use to describe myself, that I describe my activity, especially in my podcast and in my blogs and in my public persona. It's all about inspiration and influence. I want to inspire people and influence people to do good in the world, and to feel good about themselves.
So when you say non-judgment, how does that look? Because a lot of times I think we throw around words that sound good, but how does that show up? What does that look like? Like, how do you do it?
I just wrote, I'm writing a blog right now. I wrote it in my journal this morning. I think I'm going to turn it into a blog. I need to publish on Saturday. I'm going to be, my son plays baseball. He's in spring training, so I'll be at spring training this weekend. So I don't know if I'll get to write my blog on Saturday. So I'm thinking, which I typically write it on Saturday, to publish that night, to come out to post on Sunday. I'll probably write it today, and I'm writing it on. It began with us versus them, and I belong to a group, a large group, the CAC, Center of Action and Contemplation, with Richard Rohr. And Rohr's group talks a lot about, we need to dismiss this us versus them and take on a we mentality that we need to take on. And Diane, I think of that a bit differently. I think that there is, and I've changed it from us versus them to an us and them. There is an us and them. There is an us. There is a group of us that are similar, that think similarly, have similar views, have similar, economic status, social status, all that. There is a group of us, and then there are those that are not, and those that are them. We have a distinction. And so it's not anything versus, it's just that there is a group of people. I have my tribe, that I don't even know all the members of my tribe. I don't know most of the members of my tribe, but I know we are similar in what we think. And yet, what I've written is that there is a legitimacy to us and them, but we are called to treat each other as we. That even though there is a distinction, we treat each other with we-ness, with that we are togetherness, we're cooperative, and that we are all human, and we all have so many similar faculties that we come together with that. So that's my new thought that I'm writing about. I like the caveat, though, is that us and them is okay, as long as we remember to treat each other as we.
Yeah. And I can see when you're talking about this, I can see what you're saying, because I'm not a sports person, but there are so many people that are. So there is kind of an us and them with sports people. There's the people that get sports and are all into sports analogies. And then there's those of us who aren't. So there is a different, we are not all the same. And that's what makes it beautiful. There is a danger, though, however, when we start saying us and them and not saying, and we love everybody the same, and not, it starts to become, they're different, there's something wrong with them.
Yeah, that's why I said we are called to treat each other as we.
Yeah.
That there is no difference between us and them, that we are all human beings. We're all created in the image of God.
And that's what when there's politics discussions where it starts to feel dividing, one of the things I say is my job is just to love everyone. That is it. It's not about who you vote for or who you don't. It's just to love everyone.
And that's not easy.
Yes and no. Once you can
Okay.
love yourself, I truly think the hardest person to love is yourself. And when you can love yourself, loving everyone else becomes so much easier.
Let me ponder that. Do I feel like I love myself? An overwhelming yes. I understand me. I understand me well. I'm very comfortable with me. I like where I'm at. And what I don't like, I make an effort to modify.
Or accept, because there's things we can't change necessarily about ourselves. I have dyslexia. That's never going to change. I have to lean into that and accept it and make it part of my story, whether I like it or not. A lot of times there's parts of us that we try to exile and be like, that's not, the judgy part of me doesn't exist. It does in all of us. That's part of human nature. So
Oh, yes.
learning how to embrace the parts of us that change the parts we can and embrace the parts we don't love, but learning to work with them.
We're on the same page. I may not have articulated it that way, but I agree with you completely. Accepting our differences, our changes, but learning to love with them and work with them, and not separate, not separate from ourselves, not have multiple personalities, and not separate ourselves from other people.
So then, if you love yourself, do you find that makes a huge difference in loving everybody else? Does that make you so much more open to just love everybody else and so much more accepting? Like when you're talking about it at 70, everything changed for you. Do you think it
No,
has?
not everything changed. It was just huge changes. No, everything
Huge
didn't
change.
change. It was just a big
you're right.
change. Yeah.
But do you feel like loving yourself makes it easier to love other people or no?
Diane, I have never had a hard time loving other people. Ever. My whole life. See, you know, it's probably helpful to understand, you know, my work career. I began, you know, I was a hippie until I was 30. You know, until I was 30, you know, I was a UCLA full-fledged anti-war, you know, civil rights activist at UCLA in 1967 to 1970. So I was right there, and then I lived another decade in the decade of the 70s, which were my 20s, and that was just total freedom, sex and drugs and rock and roll, and I just lived that crazy life. And then at 30, I read the Bible to disprove it to a Christian friend, to say, you know, you guys have just been caught up in this story that is a bunch of bunk. And I read a couple books in the Bible, and the Holy Spirit talked to me and said in my language, Charlie, this is not BS. This Jesus stuff is real, and that changed everything. And so I was in ministry. Then I was a coach, a personal coach, you know, a business coach. So I've always lived my life in service of other people, and it had to be, I had to love, like kids. I coached baseball kids. You know, one of my, you know, I mean, I coached business executives. I left my career as a coach to executives of CEOs of billion-dollar companies. But my greatest success were my kids in baseball. And all they got discipline. I'm telling you, they learned the sport. They learned the fundamentals of the sport. They learned leadership. They would run themselves. I mean, we had a group of 8 to 12-year-olds that were so disciplined and so concerned with doing the fundamentals of the game and teamwork, always understanding this game is not about you. This game is about a team. This game is about a win, and no individuals can give you a win. It's a team win. And but it was rigorous instruction on that, and I was tough on a baseball field. But at the end of practice, you know, now this was 25 years ago, so I could do it. You know what my kids would get, my guys, my young kids? half the time they'd get a kiss on the cheek. See, I could do that then because I wasn't
Yeah, not now.
I wasn't a predator on them. I was the coach, and everybody knew I was the guy that's going to throw F-bombs at 10-year-olds and say, you got to get this together. But they knew they were loved. They knew they were cared for. Everybody got equal playing time. My son, obviously, since now he's a professional baseball player, was always the star of the team, but he was never, ever treated as the star of the team by me or the other coaches. The team was what was important. And so just loving others has always been, that's not been a transition for me. So did I love myself? I almost think loving others, Diane, has helped me to love myself.
Yeah. I can see if you love either one, it helps shift the other way, because love creates more love. So
it does. Diane, I'm looking at our time, and for people that didn't have any notes, we've gone 50 minutes, and we could go another 50. So my encouragement, I got to tell you, my encouragement is audio yourself a book. And it doesn't have to be, remember, books don't have to, 100-page books are beautiful. 30 to 40,000 word books. No one likes to read a 500-page book, not even a 250-page book anymore. Our attention spans are not there. And you have so many quotable statements. I really encourage you to get some of it out there for the public to hear even more, because people need to hear from Diane McDowell, and I'll really try to push our show because they need to hear more from you. You're incredible.
Thank you.
Okay, with that, I want to thank you for being on the show. What an honor that you would take time and put up with my tardiness this morning. Thank you for that. That's very kind of you.
Thank you, Charlie, for having me and for this amazing conversation.
Yeah, it's been a fun conversation. And I want to thank everybody for tuning in to the next chapter with Charlie. And until next, this is Charlie Hedges signing off. Bye for now.